All right. Well, thank you for being here, everybody. So I'm Tyler. I'm the Study Abroad advisor here. I'm at Webster, and we're joined with three students who studied abroad last semester. I'll let you introduce yourselves and say where you studied abroad and for how long. So, Jennifer, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. My name is Jennifer. I studied for a term, so 2 months over in Leiden, the Netherlands.
My name is Olivia, and I studied last semester, spring 20, what was it? It was fall 2021, in Greece, in Athens.
And my name is Hannah. I studied for the same semester, fall 2021 in Vienna, Austria.
Cool. Awesome. I guess I have a question just to start, and you can go in the same order or you can jump in however it works. Is how did you choose to study abroad in the destination that you ended up going to? Why did you pick that program specifically?
I specifically chose Leiden just because a lot of people that I knew who had studied abroad previously, they were like, it's a very kind of small town feel. It's like you can, hey, you need to go to the store. It's like maybe a 10-minute walk. It was very convenient. And what I discovered while being over there is there's a lot of bikers and like people driving cars, and I really love that. And it is a very, very small town, and I personally really like the smaller feel of towns rather than bigger cities. Like I went to Amsterdam for like a day and I was like, this is cool, but I'd rather go back to the small town feel. That's why I chose it.
Um, well, my best friend and I wanted to study abroad together, and I think we both had different ideas of where we wanted to go, but I didn't actually check the website to make sure like wherever I wanted to go was even a place. So we ended up going to Greece, and I've taken Latin in high school, so I thought that it would be a fun time and like really historic and significant, and it ended up being exactly that. So it just kind of happened. It wasn't like a more of like a conscious choice. It was just kind of like a, hey, I'm gonna go do this. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say I kind of had a similar experience almost. I'm a music major, and so I've been studying classical music and the history of and music theory for 2 years now. Well, 3 years now. And so for me, it was just kind of a no-brainer. Like every music major goes to Vienna. So, why not? That kind of thing. But I ended up enjoying it. It ended up being a very, very useful towards what I study.
Cool. Yeah. Does did anybody else have questions? Research Chase, do you have questions that you want to get answered?
Yeah, so I was thinking, how'd you guys feel like the semester went by, or like the 2 months? Did it go by quickly for you guys?
Um, for me, it was like a mix. Like you certain times you feel like it's going by really fast, and then certain times you feel like this is you're never gonna leave. And I think it's kind of a roller coaster, at least for me, in that way, because it's like you can have fun some days, but then other days you're not doing anything, and it's like it's it's different, but it's also the same of being in St. Louis or wherever uh, you live, and in the way that it's like you are you're doing the same type of things, but it's just somewhere else, and there's a lot of things that accompany being somewhere else. So it's kind of both. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I was there only for 2 months, and it was slow, but also it went by really fast. Like I think it was slow because I was a little homesick, but I mean, I just tried to keep myself pretty busy, like I traveled pretty much every other weekend. I went to like Ireland, Italy, and Belgium while I was over there, and that was all within 2 months. And even so, like me and my roommate would try and travel, do something on the weekends just to keep our minds off of the fact that we're homesick. But yeah, I mean, it could definitely feel like it's dragging if you don't have anything going on. Like it definitely, that first week of being there, like dragged so long because we hadn't started school yet. So we were just like, well, once we start school, it'll probably go by a lot faster, than we think. And I mean, you definitely adapt. And it was definitely weird for me because I was only there for 2 months. So it felt like I was pretty adapted. And then I was like, okay, I'm going home, and it was very, yeah, it was dependent on the day.
Yeah, talking about that cycle of like adapting, the thing that I really liked about it, my time being 4 months, is that maybe for the first like month or so, you kind of start, building relationships, making friends, figuring out where your grocery store is, what your trains are, yada yada. And then I noticed that by month 2, I was pretty well adapted. And then that gave me 2 whole months of being, you know, pretty adapted to where I was, my space, the culture around me. And then by month 4, I was kind of preparing to go home in a way. That made the journey really smooth for me, and that I could wait to be homesick because I was focused on having to adapt.
Going off that, do you guys feel like you guys could like stay there to live, or like would you like to like continue to study abroad, or are you guys good with just like staying in like your hometown, or coming back to the US?
Oh my gosh. I don't know, like I could definitely see myself still living in the US, but I know I want to keep traveling around Europe. Like I had never been out of the country before that, and I'm like, I need to go back. Like I only got to see Dublin, Ireland. I didn't get to see much else of Ireland, so I'm like, I know I want to go back to Ireland. I went to Milan with a friend, and I mean, I want to see other places of Italy, so it's like there's so much I didn't get to see, and I know I'm going to go back someday.
Yeah, it's definitely like a dream to live in Europe. I think that it's kind of weird, at least for me, that it was kind of like you're isolated in the sense that you don't have your family there, you don't have people that you like a giant support system. So it's a lot different. But I think that if you're prepared to like kind of go off on your own, then like studying abroad or being abroad or living abroad is like it's a really amazing opportunity, especially if you're in Europe, because you have the freedom to go basically wherever you want. I mean, I didn't do that much traveling because it's expensive, but the places that I did travel to, even if it was just around Greece, like it's still like really amazing. And I don't think, I mean, personally, I don't know if I live in Greece, but I would like to live in Europe at some point. I don't know if I ever will, but yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the beauty of study abroad, especially if you're there for a longer amount of time, is that like once you travel more, you start to kind of narrow down the areas that you possibly could live in. Like I know I could not live in Vienna, or I know Vienna's not the place for me, but I think I could live in like Madrid per se, which is another big city, but it has a culture that I feel like I fit in better to. Um, and on the same note, it kind of being away from your home often makes you appreciate the things that you love about your home. So it goes both ways, where as you travel, you get to kind of narrow down where you think you could possibly move to, or it helps you recognize the reasons why you want to stay in where you grew up per se.
That was very beautifully said. Thank you. I'm not sure if anyone else has any questions. So I feel like I'm probably taking over here. But you guys were mentioning like how you guys like ride bikes and stuff. Like, did you guys like ride bikes like all the time for transportation, or like what was like your go-to transportation?
So obviously if I was in town, I rode my bike. I could have taken it with me, but I never really took it anywhere with me. But main transportation is the train. And I loved that. I honestly, like, I could go on a 3-hour trip and I'd have to like be on the train because I got to see like the countryside of like the Netherlands, and mainly that. And I mean, just a lot of public transportation, like buses and stuff too, but it's not as like sketchy, honestly, as it is in like the US here. You know, it was a lot more comfortable. Like everybody was more friendly and it didn't seem scary as opposed to here in the US. And they have I think in some like bigger cities like in Amsterdam, we took like trams or something like that. Or I think that's what they're called. I'm not totally sure, but that was like the main form was like if we had to go to a different city, we'd take the train, and then within that it'd be like a tram, bus. I mean, it was so easy just to figure out some sort of transportation within the city.
Definitely. Bikes are great. Bikes are really, really nice, especially if you have access to them. A lot of the big cities do have like really cheap or even free bike rental services. Like a lot of the ones in Vienna are free. I don't know exactly where you're looking, Brisa, but Vienna probably, in my opinion, has the best public transportation system of any city I've ever been to ever. Um, so usually it's like buses, trains, subway, trams, a combination of all four, that you take mostly everywhere. Especially, I took that a lot because Vienna is very cold. So it depends on the climate of where you're living. Obviously, bikes are a great option, but it's not always feasible when it's like snowing or something.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with Greece, but I mean they had very small roads, lots of traffic, lots of different sized vehicles coming through, and I was in like the most like bustling part of the city, so I never really saw any, like thinking back on it, I didn't see a lot of bikes and scooters for rent. They had like lots of tour groups that would come around in random bike hordes, and that was really weird. But I mostly, if I was going to travel, it was either with the school or I didn't really do taxis a lot because I didn't really know how to work them as well. And so I would take like the tram was really easy. The subway is really easy. There's so many stops like all over that you just take one and then you can just like walk to wherever you want to go. And most things are very close by. And then I also, what did I do? So I took, there's like a tram to the airport, so you can take that to and from, which is very easy. Um, and when I was in Italy, I went to Italy, so I took the train like once, and that's really nice too. And it's a lot different. I never really taken public transport because I've lived here my whole life in St. Louis, so um, it's a lot more close knit and a lot easier to understand than like people say New York is like the worst public transportation. And so this is like the other end of the spectrum, I would say.
And I know you guys have mentioned like traveling, like other places you were able to go and things, and between, it's always like a fight between like, do you want to go back to the places that you've been to that you know you love, or do you want to see somewhere new? But do you have like, what was like that one favorite place from your time abroad that you are like, this is my place, this is my favorite place I've ever been, or somewhere that I know I need to come back to? Do you have that or some place that you would recommend anybody go?
100% of the time that I traveled, the city was never my favorite trip. Always, it was something. There's two that stick out in my mind. The first one is Hallstatt, Austria, which it's very, very close to an area that's connected to the Swiss Alps. And so there's tons of hiking trails. Like I summited a peak in the Swiss Alps. How freaking cool. And then the second one is Dubrovnik, Croatia, which is like right on the sea, kind of like beachy, but also very small town-esque. You could like swim in the Dead Sea. You could go kayaking, yada, yada, yada. Like 100% of the time, the places that me and a lot of the people I've talked to loved the most were the ones where you could do more activities rather than just sightseeing. Like the sites are very cool, very fun, but those trips definitely make the most memories.
No, I could definitely like piggyback off of that. I like I said, I went to Milan and I went to Dublin and I also went to Brussels, but it's like those are like really, really big cities. And I think the places that were the most noteworthy were the places that were like outside the big cities. Like we went to Amsterdam because I went to the Anne Frank house and that was awesome. Like that was a really big highlight of my trip. But whenever we went to Amsterdam, I was kind of like, okay, I went to Amsterdam. I really don't absolutely need to go back. I was like, it's cool, but I'd rather see more of like the Netherlands countryside or like those little small towns. We went to one little small town. We went to a concentration camp that was in the Netherlands, and it was in this really, really tiny town, and it was so cute. And I was like, oh my God, if I'm gonna live in the Netherlands, I could totally live here. I don't remember the name of the town, but it was so cute. And that was like the most noteworthy of like my traveling, and it was all fun, Dublin and Milan and all that was so much fun, but the most noteworthy was seeing all the other stuff on the way there or like on the trains. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I definitely agree. For me, I went to Pompeii because I went to Rome. Yeah, I went to Rome. So, oh, and FYI, if you do go to Rome, this is the most disappointing thing about the entire study abroad, but the Colosseum requires you to buy tickets beforehand. And they like apparently never had done that. So I got there expecting to just like buy a ticket and they sold out and I had to leave without going to the Colosseum. So that was terrible. But I went to Pompeii and like the train ride there was just insane. I mean, like you see mountains. It's like I don't like Italy is just so beautiful. And um it's the thing about Pompeii, it kind of talks like about what you were saying, Hannah. Or it's like there's there's hiking and then there's sightseeing. So it's like you can go in the town, you can go into the like the what's it called? The archaeological site, and then you can also like hike up the volcano. So I think it's like I didn't do it. I didn't have the time, but it's definitely these like small towns. Like when I was with the school, we took a excursion or whatever to our Arakova, which is just this like Greek mountain town, and it was just so cute. I mean, and you're in the mountains, and it's beautiful. So
I had a question about like bedding, like big comforters and blankets. Like how'd you get that over there? Did they already like have some you could maybe buy or borrow?
for me, so I don't know what the issue is, but the mattresses in Greece are like rock hard. I don't know what it is. They said that they just bought them and it's like they were absolutely terribly uncomfortable and they hurt my body to lay on. So I tried to do like this I tried to find for days an eggshell that I don't know if they sell those in Athens, but I couldn't find one. There was one in the apartment that I was able to use, but the rest of my roommates just like suffered. And they give you bedding, so like you don't have to worry about bringing sheets. You don't have to worry about bringing a pillow or a comforter or anything because they'll give it to you. Even like bath towels, I would say that you could hold off and just try to find a place there. I don't know where you're looking toward to going, but like if you're in a city, you will find something. So I wouldn't bring anything that's like not. I didn't bring anything that was not clothing. So all I brought was like clothing, and I just bought everything else there when I got there. Especially in Greece, like the closest store, like I don't know what it's called, just like store is literally 5 seconds away. So you can find like blankets and things if it's not enough, or like the school in Athens, they like have more blankets. So yeah.
I definitely second that. I would focus on bare essentials because whatever you buy there or whatever you need once you get there, you can buy. And then once you don't need it anymore, you can donate it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I actually did bring a towel with me, but then I realized I was like, well, shoot, I really actually don't need this. I actually bought one, like another one while I was over there. And whenever I was leaving, there was so much that I was just like, I don't need to bring this back. I don't need to bring this back. There was a lot of but yeah, we got provided like comforters and stuff, and like the mattresses weren't like amazing over in Leiden. And I mean, it's like really it's like you're living in a dorm essentially. So it's like, how good is it really going to be? But I mean, it works for being there temporarily. But yeah, you don't have to bring sheets or a comforter or anything like that. They provide you with a pillow, but I mean, I personally, my pillow was horrible, and because I was only there for 2 months, I just sucked it up. But you can like buy a pillow while you're over there. It's really, really easy because you're in a city, and like Leiden has so many shops like everywhere right by where we lived. So it was very convenient to be able to buy whatever you needed.
Also, if you bring a pillow on a plane, you won't have to charge it as an extra carry-on. So if you're traveling in Europe and you need extra clothes, you can fill your pillowcase.
That's the tricks you got to learn. That's the stuff you got to ask. I've done some stuff on little budgets. Olivia, if it makes you feel better, I've been to Rome and I didn't go to the Colosseum because I didn't have the money to buy a ticket, even if it was sold. So I've been there. But yeah, there's definitely some. Do you guys have any, speaking of like other money saving tips, or like, I don't know, people have stories of, like flying Ryanair and packing in like tiny little things and stuff like that. Do you guys have kind of like tips from your experiences or things that you did that saved a ton of money?
Yeah, the first thing Ryanair and Omeo are like the cheapest ways to fly. And it's really simple. I think somebody paid $11 or 11 euros to go to Rome from Greece. I think my roommate did that. And then I paid like 60, but I think it was round trip. But it's so cheap. And then I think Omeo is for trains and stuff. So you can find and it's really easy to use as well. But yeah, it's a lot easier to feel like you're getting away with spending less when you're using euros, because things will be cheaper. But in reality, and like in the US, and if you're using a card, you're spending like $2 to $3 more. So I would keep that in mind at least. Just if you're trying to like save some money, that it's kind of like an illusion.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. You can go.
You go ahead.
Okay. But I mean, yeah, my biggest thing was like, how much do I need to save up? I was there for 2 months. Let me see. I think I had, just for the 2 months, I had like, man, I'm trying to think. I had a savings, and I had maybe like 1,000 saved up in savings. And I think I maybe had like 1,500 in my checking. So like that was almost 3,000. But I mean, it perfectly got me by. Definitely Ryanair. I did EasyJet like once. I wasn't a big fan, but I mean, it's literally like, you're on the plane for like maybe an hour or something like that, depending where you're going. So it's like, I was just like, okay, I'll suck it up and just, it's whatever. But I mean, yeah, EasyJet, Ryanair, those are like the most cheapest ones. Like I took both of those. I think I took Ryanair to Ireland and EasyJet to Milan, and it was definitely very fairly priced.
Yeah, and another easy way to get cheaper flights is like, don't bring a big carry-on. I brought I can show you. I brought this guy, just like a backpack, but he's kind of thin. And a lot of a lot of places, especially Ryanair, will try to charge you for bringing on a big backpack. So if you're going on a weekend trip, like really just pack bare essentials and just bring a backpack, and then maybe a pillow with some clothes in it if you need it. That's just an easy way to save like 40 euros per trip.
To answer your question, for me, it was, yeah, I was traveling while I was studying abroad. So I traveled over fall break, and then I traveled, and I went to islands just kind of randomly. So, oh, the big thing in Greece is like taking the ferry. I forgot what website. I think it's like Ferry Hopper. You can use Ferry Hopper to find tickets for the ferries, and those can be kind of expensive, but it just depends on which island you're going to. So, the closer the island, the less expensive it's going to be. And you can get student. So here's the weird thing. You can get a student discount, and it'll say student at Greek university. But then if you give them your university thing, like your little card that at least Dina gave me, it didn't work. So they ended up charging me more, like double the price because I had said student discount. So I would be a little careful, but you can get student discounts at like other places like beaches and stuff like that. You can get student discounts if you just show them your ID. It most of the time works. It's just you either have good luck and they're checking, or they're not checking, and you have bad luck and they are checking. So
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, thank you. Were you guys able to work while abroad?
like job?
Yeah.
Oh no.
No. Okay. I figured.
I know that like I have one of my roommates, she was there, I think she's still over there. She's there for the whole academic year. And she was looking at like maybe getting a job or like some sort of, because she was like, oh my God, I'm here for the whole year. I don't have enough money to like, make it saved up for the whole year. But I can't remember what the whole logistics were. Like, obviously I was only there for 2 months. So it was just like, I'll save up and then I'll work whenever I get home. But I think there is a way to work. I'm not 100% sure. It just depends how long you're staying.
It
Yes.
depends on the country, and it can be tricky with student visas. Every country kind of has different regulations on working and what type of visa you're on, and that sort of thing. But generally in the EU, it's tough because an employer has to sponsor your work visa. In most countries, basically to do that, they have to prove that they're hiring you for a position that they couldn't fill with somebody who is an EU citizen and doesn't need a visa. So it's tricky if it's not like just to get a job at like a cafe or something like that is pretty much impossible.
Yeah, and the other thing too is like you have to think about the language barrier. It'd be difficult to work a job in a place that you might not speak the native language. And but something that some of my friends did, or people that I knew did, is they would like walk dogs or house sit or like water plants, just like little things like that you can do kind of on the side under the table for like professors or something. Like I had a professor who hired a student to just walk her dog twice a day. So there's things like that.
Yeah. Or if you end up in places where there's less English proficiency, like obviously like if you're in like the Netherlands or something, nobody needs your help with English. They all speak it perfectly anyway. But if you end up studying abroad somewhere where there's lower English proficiency, people will pay like people that give like private English classes, or to even have conversation, like go and sit and have coffee with someone and help them practice English for an hour, and they'll pay you for like that sort of like side hustle type of jobs. Yeah.
I also knew a crazy amount of people in Europe who did not know how to do their laundry. So you can get paid to do someone's laundry.
That's news to me. Interesting. Cool.
Yeah. So did you guys primarily use like a credit card, or did you take like your $2,000 like overseas? Like how'd you work that?
I personally, I would take out like $200 in euros every like couple of weeks, and it's a lot. I guess it depends on what you're doing, but like it's most of the time a lot easier to use cash. I personally, if you have a credit card or a debit card, I would say bring like bring it. But I kept my no, I didn't use my debit card because I didn't want anybody using my information. So I would use a credit card. Um, and I would use my debit card to get money out of the ATMs because obviously you can't use your credit card to get money out of the ATMs. And one thing that's really annoying, at least for me, or it's different in Greece than it is here, is they are like sticklers for separating checks. So if you are going to a restaurant and you ask for separate checks, expects them to be like about it and kind of give you shit for it, excuse me. And so that's why cash kind of helps, because especially if you're going out with your roommates, if you have cash, you can all just kind of do exact change and just give them the money. And it might take a lot longer, but it's easier. So if you have a credit card, I would say use that. If you have a debit card, bring that so you can get money out, because like you don't want to have a lot of cash on you at one time.
Yeah, I was definitely that was like my biggest question whenever I was about ready to go. I was like, how like, I had no idea. I definitely, before I left, definitely call your bank, and obviously if you plan on bringing your debit card, like tell them so that they don't cancel it or anything like that while you're over there. And then sometimes, like, I know my bank, I was able to order some euros before I left, and I was like, hey, can I get this amount, of euros? Because it was a lot cheaper to get euros over here. This is one thing that was really big I went with a friend to Milan. Like, she was studying in Madrid at the time, and we met in Milan, and she had a bunch of like US dollars, and we just went into a random like, currency exchange place, and they charged so many fees, and she was like, what the heck, why didn't I get it? Like, so definitely beforehand get some euros. I brought my debit card, and I would sometimes pay with my debit card, but definitely make sure you have euros on you, because my roommate and I actually got in a situation where we went out to eat, and they were like, oh, we don't take MasterCard or or Visa or anything like that. And so she had to like go to the nearest ATM, get money, and I had to just like hang out there. It was like so scary, but some places don't take MasterCard or Visa or anything like that. So definitely make sure you have euros on you no matter what. But I mean, it was pretty easy for me to occasionally go to an ATM real quick and get some money out of my account. Obviously there's those fees and stuff like that, depending on what your bank or, just kind of, stuff like that. But it's a lot more convenient than you would think. I thought it was really complicated, but it was definitely a surprise at how convenient it was. Like, I got a credit card, brought my debit card, and I got some euros before I left. So that's what I highly recommend.
One thing that I will warn you about is, and I did this because I wasn't thinking, but the first thing I did when I got there at the airport was exchange money. Don't do that, because it's like a 30% fee or something. And I gave like $200, and I think I got like less than 100 back in euros or something like that. I don't remember. It was like a total blow. So don't exchange money at the airport. I would just wait until you can get to an ATM and then do it there, because that's only like €2 or something.
Yeah.
Most airports have ATMs too. You can even just walk right past that counter to the ATM. But sorry, I didn't tell you about that beforehand.
That's just me. That's just me.
I would say, honestly, just don't exchange money, period, unless you absolutely have to. Or if you do, wait until you get home. Because what I normally did was, a lot of times in any country you go to, they're going to have an ATM. pretty much anywhere you go, they're going to have an ATM. And I would just get the local currency once you get there, because you're either arriving there by train or by plane. So in a train station or the plane or the airport, they're going to have an ATM where you can pull out the local currency. Something that Olivia said earlier that I really, really want to highlight is having money in two different places. Because if, say, you put your cash, your credit card, and your debit card in one wallet, and then your wallet gets stolen, then you're kind of like screwed. So what I did was, like, normally I had my debit card in my room, and then I brought my credit card and some cash with me wherever I went, so that if they didn't take cash, I could use my credit, or if they didn't take credit, I would use cash. And then if I'm going on a trip per se, like I'm going out of the country, I would bring my debit card with me along with some cash, but I would still keep my debit card in a separate location, like in my shoes or in like the socks of my, backpack or whatever. So keeping money in two different locations is really important, because if all of your money's in one place and gets stolen, which happened to my boyfriend, then there's really nothing you can do from there.
You could probably, if you have like an iPhone, or I don't know, I think Samsung does this too. You can do like phone pay, like wallet stuff. That's also a lot easier. But one thing that I really recommend is scanning all of your important documents onto your phone. So for me, that was like my ID, especially your vaccination card, because at least this was happening when I was there. They were requiring you to show vaccination upon entry to any building. So instead of I dropped my card on the ground and didn't realize. So I would say I found it, but I would say that it's a lot better to scan your COVID card, because they're going to ask for it, and they're also going to ask for your ID to make sure that the names match. So, and your passport, I would do that too, just so you have it all on you. Even your cards, if you feel like it, I would say.
Speaking of passports, like, while it's I know here it's like a very scary thing to bring your passport with you places. Obviously, you're going to need it if you leave the country. A lot of places, like Airbnb, for example, will maybe not Airbnb. Yeah, no, Airbnb in certain countries will ask you to like submit pictures of your passport. And sometimes they'll have like the owner of the actual home do it, which seems very scary, but it is like often a country law. So people in general are just kind of more lenient with their passport, so don't be afraid to have it scanned.
I have one more question about microwaves and fridges. Like, did you just, if you needed food for the week, would you just keep it in like the community fridge, or would you buy maybe a mini fridge and put it in your dorm room?
Well, like I lived in an apartment, so where are you looking to go? I think it would be important to know where you're looking at.
Switzerland.
So I'm assuming it's going to be like a dorm, but you have like one fridge that you share with your roommates or something. You have a full kitchen. At least I had a full kitchen. And so you have microwave, you have oven, you have fridge. I had two fridges. One of them didn't work, so we made that into like a pantry. So like all the food that you want, and ordering food's really easy. I also recommend using like Wolt, or what's the other one? There's another one that's really easy to use. So like storing food should be no problem. I don't think you need to buy anything related to that.
Yeah, and I know all the three people we have here, none of them happen to study in Geneva too. So, and I know the answer is a little bit different by place, but the rooms in Geneva have like a shared kitchen with like, there's like 3 bedrooms together that share a kitchen space or whatever. So there will be like fridge space and food storage space in Geneva too.
Sweet. Do you guys know which credit cards like work the best or have no like fees on them?
Not Discover, my friend. And my Discover card was useless. MasterCard and Visa are probably the two, like Visa for debit, MasterCard for credit, probably the two most universal.
I'm actually the opposite. I had MasterCard for debit and I had Visa for credit. So I mean, yeah, those are definitely the two biggest ones. I was like, even in those little places that I couldn't use my card, I was like, in the other places, it was like MasterCard or Visa. And I was like, okay, thank God I can actually use my card.
Yeah, and normally, in my experience, normally credit cards did not come with an international fee, um, whereas debit cards usually do, which is why oftentimes taking out large amounts of cash at one time is more cost efficient than using your debit card for every single purchase.
And always little trick to always pay, unless you have a ridiculous bank, always pay in the local currency. Like if they give you, like when you stick your card in, it'll ask you if you want to pay in US dollars or in euro, because it'll look at the or whatever the local currency is, and they'll recognize that your bank account is in US dollars. If you choose to pay in US dollars, they make their own conversion rate that's worse than the actual conversion rate. So always choose to pay in the local currency. We'll save you like 1 or 2% on every transaction. And also, yeah, like Hannah mentioned that some of that is tied to your bank with like the fees that they do. But a lot of credit cards, if you're looking at like applying for a credit card, like if you already have a bank account, like that you probably have a debit card with that you would be using to pull out of ATMs and things like that. But if you're looking at credit cards, like the kind of credit cards that you see advertisements for, like for points accumulation and stuff, like Capital One or Chase cards or airline credit cards or any of those rewards credit cards, a lot of those have no foreign transaction fees. Now, some of them have like an annual fee for having the card, but a lot of them like waive the annual fee for the first year. You could honestly apply for the card, use it while you're abroad, and cancel it when you get back, and you never have to pay a fee, and then there's no fees to use it for transactions. But kind of depends on your bank, and like what you already have established is what makes the most sense. Brisa, do you have any more questions?
I wrote a few down. I'm trying to see which ones. So there's a lot of. Were there like any like rules or like new norms that you guys had to like adjust to that we probably wouldn't be used to doing out here in the US?
Where are you looking to go?
So right now I'm gonna study abroad like for like just a week at Costa Rica, but after that, I'm kind of open to anything. So it could be Europe or I don't know, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then I won't get into the specifics and the annoyance of Vienna's cultural norms, but I would say in general, there's always going to be cultural norms wherever you go. I would say in general, Europe is much more kind of like a square box kind of mentality. At least where I was living, like everybody dressed up every day. You did not wear leggings. You did not wear ripped jeans. Like you did not put your feet up on the subway. You didn't speak loud in the subway. It's just kind of a more like, I would say, kind of restricted box of living. Just kind of I don't know, just a little bit more like reserved in general of a culture in Europe.
One thing that got me when I was there, when I was in Greece, is like solicitors. Hello, dog. That's cute. I don't know. There's I don't know. There's I think a big homeless problem in Greece, but there are people who will come up to you and try to sell you things. They'll try to give you roses. They'll try to give you bracelets. They'll try to do anything. And children will come up to you. I had like a toddler come up and try to sell me a rose one of my first week. And I obviously had no idea what was going on. And I was just like, no. And the girl, they start harassing you a little bit. They'll like try to look like they're going to fight you. They'll want to spit on you. They'll, flick you off. And the best way to go about that is just to like be very firm and just say like no, thank you, goodbye, kind of thing. We learn like the Greek word for go away, and like they get so mad at you when you use it. So I think for me the biggest thing that I learned was kind of just to stand your ground in Greece, because some people can like really take advantage of you. There's always people on the sidewalk. One thing that really made me angry, people don't move out of your way. So be prepared to just run into people if you don't care. Like people start to just make me angry. So I would just run into them because they're not going to move. Regarding school, like the classroom experience is a lot different. I think if you're studying abroad, a big part of like studying. So for me, I have a lot of things to say about the Greek curriculum, but I will spare you. Just it's a lot different. Be prepared for like a different learning environment. I personally never experienced something that was so unorganized. Like the teachers have no idea what they're doing, and like they don't really like help you, I guess. It's just very independent, I will say that. So I think it, and I'm saying things for Greece, like I'm not saying things for anywhere else because I don't know, but that's just like for Greece. It's just I would just be prepared to like kind of be immersed in something that you don't even expect to happen. Like I had no idea it was going to be like this. Nobody could have prepared me for the experience that like I personally had. So I think there's like only so much that you can kind of expect or like be told is going to happen, so much as like you're just going to have to find out, kind of thing. I know that sounds like kind of mean, but it's like at least it's just there's no way that I could have been prepared for what I experienced with the school. So yeah.
Yeah, the European system in general is much more independent. Like it's much more like in my experience, the teachers kind of expected the students to lead the class or like lead the conversation, which is it's a very different experience from what we have. Going off of like the culture thing though, with like people not moving out of your way and things, is there are, at least I was kind of more closer to Eastern Europe than Western Europe. So this is a lot of my experience living in Vienna, but a lot of people are not super fond of Americans, and they know who you are. And sometimes like a lot of the things that people said to me or like made gestures at me were very rude and unnecessary, but oftentimes, I mean, they're not going to do anything. You just have to ignore them, and you just have to not let it get to you, because their impression of America is just as our impression is with anybody else, is largely based on the media. And you just have to remember that it's not personal. It's just their impression of what America's social and political system looks like.
Cool. Well, it's been like almost an hour, so I don't need to keep you guys any longer, but maybe, I don't know, a finish on like a higher note than that, maybe. I mean, it's a good, like, I don't want to sugarcoat study abroad like at all. Like there are challenges with it. Part of that is results in growth, but part of it is there's just challenges. Like there's not everything's perfect, and there's things that are very real that should be talked about. But also if anybody has any last thoughts of of something that you want to share, feel free to.
I do.
Oh, sorry, Hannah. We keep interrupting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just say it really quick. Before I left, my parents were so, you know how parents are. They're like, oh, this is bad and this is bad. And don't listen to anybody. Like sometimes a lot of the negative things come across because they're things that we're not used to. They're things that we had to adjust to. It's culture shock exists. So, even if you search like what to be careful for. Like a million things are going to pop up. So it's good to be aware of like, not everybody loves Americans, and sometimes things are a little bit more expensive than they should be, and so on and so forth. But as long as you're aware of those things and you don't let them take over your mind, it's easy to avoid them and move on and make such amazing things happen. So yes, prepare for things that might be negative, but at the end of the day, those things are often out of your control. What you can control is the way you approach the situation, and the way that the way that your mentality is throughout the situation. And you can only make the situation as good as you want to. So it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much gonna say the same thing as like, you are gonna face challenges, but I would not take it back. Like, I do not regret it for a second. I'm so happy I went. I'm so happy I did it, because I'm actually like so much more independent as a person, and I feel like I've grown from the experience. And it was such an amazing experience, even just like traveling by myself. I've never traveled by myself, let alone have I ever even been out of the US. And it was so worth it. It was kind of anxiety inducing a little bit, but at the same time, you're learning how to essentially be an adult. You're kind of traveling on your own, you're planning stuff on your own, you're figuring everything out on your own. And it's such a great experience, though. You make a lot of friends. Like, I have friends who live in Italy now, and I have friends who live in the Netherlands. I think that's so cool. I'm able to say that I know people who live in the Netherlands or Italy and just pretty much all over the world. And I mean, don't let the challenges keep you away from doing it. Like, my parents said the same thing. Like, my dad especially, he was like, he watches the news a lot, so he's always like, oh, there's this going on, there's this bad thing going on, there's this bad thing. And it's like, okay, but have you even been out of the country? Like, my dad hasn't even been out of the country. I'm like, okay, well, it's not all bad, Dad. You just got to make the most of your situation. And despite the challenges, what you get out of it is so much more worth it. It's so much more memorable.
Yeah. What they said, I think, personally, I went through a lot of like really important like personal growth through the independence that I was given. Like, at the end of the semester, I learned how to write a paper about whatever I wanted. So, I think that's just the school side, but it's like you just kind of learn so much because it's so different. And I think that it's kind of hard to say something that you guys didn't say. But it's like an amazing opportunity to leave one person and come back a different person. And it's most of the time better. So I think that, like, no matter what, just kind of like try to immerse yourself in the culture wherever you are. Try to like learn as much about like the place that you're at. I know a lot of Greek things now that I never learned before, including politics. So I think another big thing is that, like, really try to make friends with people outside of your school group, or just kind of like, it's really hard. I didn't even really do it, but like making friends with people at like bars or at like parks. I don't know. It's just like it's you really can meet a lot of really cool people. The people that I did interact with were like amazing. I mean, you find really amazing people. So just kind of push yourself to do things that you've never done before, because hey, you're already in a different country. So what's worse than that? So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say.
Well, thank you. I think that was a nice way to wrap up. Unless anybody else has burning questions, I'll go ahead and stop the recording.